Good day, everyone. Happy 11/11. Here we are with the beautiful Neil Gar from Portal to Ascension. I'm so excited to speak with this beautiful human being. We only just met, about a month ago, and
hmm
our synchronicity is just divine alignment. So, Neil, can you tell us what you do in the world?
Yes, thank you so much, Anistara, for having me
Mhm.
here. And it's great to be here on 1111 with all of you for this energy that we're all connecting and creating ripples so that we can really, create some harmony and beauty on Earth. My name is Neil. I'm the founder of an organization called Portal to Ascension. I guess, should I start in the beginning, how it all manifested, Anistara?
Sure.
All
Yes,
right. All right.
please.
So well, basically, I was born and raised in England, in London. I moved to California when I was 12 years old. I was raised in a Hindu family, so I followed all the rites and rituals that my
Mm,
parents basically told me to do. Like a lot of first generation out of India children do. They like aren't really religious, but they just follow the rites and rituals. So I didn't really have any firm belief on God or conscious what it is. It was really kind of like loose. And then when I came over here and I went to high school, I just felt disconnected. Like something was kind of off on the
mm,
planet, and
mm,
it wasn't the way it could actually be, right? So
mm.
as I grew older and I graduated high school in 2000 when I was 18, I went to college in Southern California here, and then all of a sudden, I was introduced to all types of music from all over the world, different people from everywhere. And as I was connecting with all these people, I got into bands such as Tool. Tool's
Mhm.
really huge. I followed them for 3 years on tour up and down the coast. Like I love those guys.
Yeah, Alex
And
Gray's artwork.
oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, we had a conversation about that in the past too. That you connected with Alex Gray before, right?
Yes.
So I was into all this awareness, but at the same time I was kind of like looking at religion, and I wanted to know what the root of all religion was, like
Mm,
why everything is the way it is, and how come there are so many similarities within religion, but we all talk about the differences, right? So
mm.
this started actually by me creating poetry, spoken word poetry, in 18 and when I was 18, 19, 20. I was creating a lot of poetry, and I started researching the words that I was writing. Black
Wow.
hole this, wormhole travel here, different
Yeah.
planets doing this. And as I started researching them, I came across Nassim Haramein, Jordan Maxwell,
Uh-huh.
William Henry,
Yeah.
and Jim Self. And that was my introduction to consciousness. And quickly it went into the Sumerian scriptures. I started researching the Sumerian tablets of creation and the Anunnaki story, as
Uh-huh.
well as looking at it from a lens of scientific perspective, like what they're talking about, because they had all these references to vibration, frequency,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And even like hieroglyphs that actually had like a huge giant with like a tornado that was a wormhole with a human coming out of it with a DNA strand. I'm like, what are
Right.
they doing here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What
A
does this
two
mean?
scale, right? A two scale, image of our solar system with all the planets in the same right places, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
obviously the ancients knew about something that we're only just now rediscovering the last couple of hundred years. So that took me to back to my religion, that I was raised in, Hinduism, and I started realizing that all of the information that they were talking about was really vibration and frequency,
Mhm.
meditation, yoga, eating well, Ayurvedic medicine is all quantum physics in the most
Yes.
acoustic raw form, right? So my linear
Mhm.
mind all of a sudden realized that, wait a second, spirituality, religion is like almost taking parts of spirituality and put the
Yes.
man-made component on it. But if you
Uh-huh.
break it down, spirituality is actually a science that we're just rediscovering right now.
Uh,
So
uh-huh.
that kind of started, that was just a precursor to me getting into this awareness. And I spent eight
Mm.
years of going down the rabbit hole before I even started Portal to Ascension.
Ah, amazing. Yeah, I really enjoyed Nassim Haramein. We
hmm
went through his delegate program probably about 11 years ago now. And just the whole idea around we shouldn't be looking for the fundamental particle, we should be looking for the fundamental equation, right? And because we go into the macro and into the micro and out to the macro, and it's just all equations, it's
Yeah.
all
So
aligned,
mathematics.
it's all synchronistic, right? That
Yeah.
golden spiral, that mean ratio. And so, um, one of the things that really came forward when I was going through that training was, wow, the unified field. Because I always saw energy. I came from a healing background, right? I did massage and acupuncture and excuse me, I'm sorry, not acupuncture, acutonics, sound and frequency with tuning forks, as well as aromatherapy and chakra yoga and advanced theta healing. And so I could always see energy around people. I can walk into a room and I can understand if somebody's energy field needed a little something, or something could be pulled out or transmuted. And so I began to really understand how the unified field around their body would shift depending on even the words that they were saying. And so when I started diving into the actual science of what that meant on an on a scientific basis, not just an energy basis, again, it's all about frequency. When
Yeah,
we were
yeah.
in Egypt, we were so many hieroglyphs about energy. Their symbol in the hieroglyph for energy is like a little squiggly line. It kind of looks like a lightning bolt. And when they're holding the energy in their hands, it's like we have the power, we have the energy to heal ourselves.
Right.
Hmm.
I've come to realize that there's like a linear perspective of reality, and then there's the circular, which is the creative energy, and not one is better than the other. Whereas, for example, the linear mind is really the masculine energy, and the creative creation mind is more like the secular energy.
Hmm.
And there's a way to look at all of these components from both. So when you look at the scientific perspective, you're looking at the linear perspective of how the universe is created. But when you're taking a look at the energetic perspective, it transcends that linear mind to something that is completely different. But some of us
Mm,
need that linear awareness for
of
us to even
course.
get to that heart, and that's kind of where I was. So to me, just to add to what I just said there, the mathematics and the equations are the linear way of looking at the universe.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then we have music, which is the same thing. Vibration, which is music, is the same
Uh-huh.
exact thing as the mathematics, because they have the same intervals, the same equations. But
Uh-huh.
so to me, the mathematical equations of the universe equals the musical vibration of creation.
Mm, hmm. And music is the universal language,
Hmm.
right? It transcends all timelines and cultures and religions. Everybody can enjoy good music. And we all have our own opinions of what that is, but the point is that we're drawn to a certain frequency or vibration that music is bringing to us.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mhm.
when I first started doing Portal to Ascension, my introduction was over like 300 sound healing events that I did from
Uh,
2009 to 2011. Went on tour from San Diego to Vancouver to Victoria Island 4 times. And 2 times we went on tours that were extraterrestrial channeling tours, where my friend was channeling a being from Sirius, and we would open up with sound healing. And then the other
mm,
2 tours were, one was with Dr. Dream, that you might be familiar with,
mhm.
where we did just Tibetan bowl tours up and down the coast. And so, since that was my foundation with everything I did, I realized that all information that I speak about in Portal to Ascension, because we have hundreds.
Oh, it looks like we lost Neil, who probably jumped back in.
I'm back.
There he is.
And then, so we have hundreds of different topics that we deal with in Portal to Ascension, but to me, all of them can stem from the realm of vibration, because everything is vibration, right? Which is
Hmm.
like the reason why the John 1:1 says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with
Mm,
God." Every single creation story, well, majority of them at least. I actually did a presentation where called "Creation Stories of Ancient Civilizations," where I went through 300 different origin stories, and almost all of them spoke about sound in the beginning, and the ones that
mm.
didn't speak about sound actually were, but they were so metaphorical that you couldn't realize that that's what they were talking about. I didn't think that basically the premise was, in the beginning was vibration, some sort of fractalization occurred, the egg split open, and then a lot of stories started talking about spiders and spider webs, which are
Mm, mhm,
geometry stemming from the original source vibration. So I started going deeper and deeper into sound and vibration, studying quantum physics, studying new technologies that are going to come out pretty soon. So I would say the foundation of everything we do is definitely to harmonize the frequencies on the planet, which is vibration, but also to connect how ancient history has to do with that, how
mm,
extraterrestrials have to do that.
mm,
The fact that we cannot perceive UFOs that are right in front of us has to do with
mm,
vibration and frequency.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, and let's jump into that because honestly, I feel like, well, we're starting to understand that portals are here on the planet, right? And they can be activated if you yourself, the human being standing in front of it, is vibrating at a certain frequency.
Hmm.
And if the environment, the portal, is actually vibrating at the same frequency, that
Yes.
doorway can open and you can enter through it. And from there, I mean, here I got my portals above me, right? And you, it's like totally possible to travel, to
Hmm.
astral travel to other galaxies, other planets, other sacred sites on the planet.
Yeah.
And so what have you learned about that?
So we
I
can
want to know
definitely
more.
travel with our consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and shift the consciousness vibration,
Mm-hmm.
say much more easily than our entire bodies. But
Mm-hmm.
since we live in this reality where we've now figured out that all things are vibration, including us, that the way I see you and perceive you is not exactly how you look on the quantum level. On
Mm-hmm.
the quantum level, we're all vibration and frequency, which is why quantum physics and Newtonian physics, quantum physics being everything below an atom, Newtonian physics being everything above an atom and above,
Uh-huh.
literally are paradoxical to each other. However, quantum physics are the subatomic particles are the building blocks for the Newtonian world. So
Yes.
why do the physics of everything below an atom not check out with everything above an atom? So
Mm.
therein lies the illusion that
Mm-hmm.
even though we see everything and perceive it the way it is, we're truly this energy, this really intelligent consciousness that is just an energy field that we've now been able to perceive with our technology. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
as we're discovering this awareness, we are piercing through the veil, so to speak. And as
Yes.
we pierce through the veil, all of a sudden there's a whole new world of technology available to us and advancement in consciousness. So, what I'm feeling is that we've been able to use our consciousness for a while to astral travel, go visit different planets, remote view.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
now that we figured out that on the subatomic level we're energy, it's just the beginning phases of us being able to do this with our bodies and getting back to
Mm-hmm.
where we may have been, if you believe in the yuga cycles and that this has happened many, many times, that
Yes.
we've been at that level of consciousness, in call it the Satya Yuga, which is the golden
Yes.
age, right? We've been
Mm-hmm.
at the level of consciousness that we're able to use our own bodies and use our own rainbow light bodies, which, William Henry and others called the Merkaba, that are literally organic space traveling vehicles where we're able to put our whole bodies in and travel to different realities and dimensions. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that it seems to a lot of people as like far out there or sci-fi, But
Mm-hmm.
as we're moving forward, we're realizing that we're not only able to do this, but we're also seeing UFO and craft that now the government has admitted that are already doing what we're theorizing on paper. You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? So
Mm-hmm.
so I'm excited for what's to come, and I feel that as disclosure happens and we understand more truth of who we are and our ancient history and why we have amnesia on this planet and don't remember all of our
Mm,
lives and
mm,
extraterrestrial
mm,
lives, that will help us really like just
mm,
evolve far into the future.
indeed. Yes, and you and I have spoken before about the work of Joe Dispenza
Hmm.
and how he really brings quantum physics into the realm of like aligning science and spirituality together.
Yes.
And through that lens, instead of living in that Newtonian world of cause and effect, we can actually be causing an effect.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
right? Yeah,
Hmm.
so let's dive into that a little bit more. You've done a lot of studies around ancient civilizations, the Anunnaki story. I have to share with you actually. Before I went to Egypt earlier this year, I asked my son, he's 6. I said, Cadence, what do you remember from Egypt? And he said, Mommy, Daddy was in the city and he was blasting pyramids off into outer space. But you were in the forest. You were in the dark forest and you had a friend. He was a good monster, which is his word for something unexplainable, but it was a good monster. And you and the good monster became really good friends and you started building things like Legos. And then you had human monster babies. And I was like, oh my
Whoa.
gosh, he just explained the Anunnaki story of the hybrid species. So can you tell us a little bit more?
That's amazing that
Yeah.
that happened. So yes, the whole story of the Anunnaki that is kind of foundational, instrumental in a lot of people's awakening when it comes to
Mhm.
extraterrestrials and UFOs, but how it's connected to spirituality in our history.
Yes.
So the whole story is that Earth has been seeded by beings from other planets, dimensions, interdimensional beings. Let me first say the preface of this is that there are many stories that seem to have a similar kind of
Uh-huh.
storyline to it. There's the Anunnaki story. There's the story of the Pleiadians seeding Earth. There's the story of the Lyrans and the Syrians who teamed up together to
Yes.
seed Earth. So there's two trains of thought. Either history has repeated itself and there's been multiple seedings of Earth, or it's the same story with different names of these beings passed down through time,
Yeah.
right? So
Hmm.
the whole concept is that these beings, well, when we talk about the specific story of the Anunnaki, we're talking about beings that came from a planet, the 13th planet, including the sun and the moon is included as a planet in this story,
Hmm.
which is called Nibiru, that had an elliptical orbit around our galaxy, right? And then every 3,600 years, they would pass through Earth, and they would come to Earth, pass through Earth and Mars orbit. They would come to Earth in order to mine for gold and create monatomic gold to put in the atmosphere, because when their planet would be far away from the sun, it would be extremely cold there, and they needed to
Hmm.
insulate the Earth with the gold. So the story went into saying, Zachariah Sitchin translated, that we were actually a slave species, where they took the Earth Homo species at that time wasn't Homo
Hmm.
sapien, we hadn't been created yet, and they hybrid themselves with the beings on earth, creating
Hmm.
basically God man, human. And as they did this, this race was supposed to be a slave species in order for them to mine for gold so that these beings could take back to the planet. Now, that story has changed a little bit because the
Hmm.
translation now, people are saying that never said slave species, that we were basically working in unison with them, and it wasn't really a whole slave kind of indentured servant situation. But
Hmm.
then there was something that happened on Earth where these beings left. Some people say that there was a revolt of the humans on Earth, and
Hmm.
one of the tier of gods, because there were two tiers of gods on Nibiru. There was the Anunnaki and the Ajiji. The Ajiji were the demigods. We see them as Hercules. Hercules is a demigod. All the demigods of Indian
Hmm.
tradition, of Greek
Hmm.
tradition, are these gods, and they stayed on Earth and kept basically control of us and became the bloodlines that now control us on this earth. These That is basically the first story of the hybridization. Some people
Hmm.
actually say that story in a positive light, whereas didn't happen in such a way that it was detrimental or from a nefarious agenda. You know,
Hmm.
that it happened and it was kind of divinely orchestrated, that we were supposed to get our sovereignty so that we could get the experiences and the contrast of duality, and then remember who we truly are. And that's kind of
Hmm.
where we are right now.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, remembering. We're
Mm-hmm.
remembering who we are, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And multidimensional beings of light. When I really had went through my Kundalini awakening experience, it was pretty instantaneous. It
Mm-hmm.
happened about 15 years ago, and I won't go into the whole story now. I will share it in the future. But essentially, I got pulled back from the earth and saw the bigger picture. Saw the bigger picture of like people coming down, making choices, souls coming to incarnate here so that they can
Yes.
experience 3D reality and we can experience duality
Mm-hmm.
so that we know about coming back into the one. It's almost like the when I think of the story of Adam and Eve, so to speak, that um, they separated from God when they left the Garden of Eden, right? They suddenly became ashamed of and they needed to cover, and they became very masculine and feminine, where before they were the Holy Trinity with God in the Garden of Eden. And so it's really about coming back to creating that Garden of Eden here
Yes.
on the earth together and
Exactly.
coming back into that Holy Trinity, that
Right.
union.
Right. So there's another story. Have you ever read or heard of the book The Prison of Lyra by Lisa Rael?
No.
Okay,
Uh-uh.
so this is my favorite story, that you'll see how
Uh-huh.
it draws in comparison and all the parallels to the Anunnaki story. And this story I'm about to tell you is the reason why I started going down researching if these stories are the same story or if they're completely different stories that happened, right? And as I
Uh-huh.
researched, I spent 10 years researching it. I found out I can't find out the truth, because everybody has a different opinion on it, and all I'm
Of
doing is
course.
listening to other humans tell me their version of it, right?
Mhm.
So, but this story goes like this. This is how humanoids first came into our galaxy and eventually came to Earth. So basically, the Prism of Lyra is called that because the Prism of Lyra represents the black hole in the center of the galaxy, because the Lyran
Mm.
constellation is close to Sagittarius A constellation, which is supposedly the entrance to the supermassive black hole in the center of our galaxy. So what occurred in this story is that there was a group of beings called the founder race, that was just pure energy that actually lived within the void of our galaxy, which is the 13th dimension inside the black hole. they decided to incarnate and have a physical experience in our galaxy. So they came through the prism of Lyra and inhabited the constellation of Lyra and became the first humanoid species that ever existed. They were feline in features. Their faces looked
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
cats. They had long ears like elves.
The
But
Lyrans, yeah.
yeah, the
The
Lyrans, right?
Glyans.
Yep,
Uh-huh.
exactly. And as they came into this, and lived in this area for millennia, at that point, the only species, well, the main species that had kind of had control over our entire galaxy was a reptilian species. Many different types of reptilian species. They weren't all negative. They weren't all positive. They were all over the place. The positive ones were like to have been called the serpentine beings, and they represented the Kundalini energy. There was dragons that existed in our
Mm.
solar system at the time. So humans came in, and they were the first incarnation of this. And as Lyra existed for millennia, there was all types of conflicts that occurred on this planet. So there was two other habitable planets within the constellation. Over multiple millennia, both of those other planets got inhabited as well, and now there was a solar system of three different inhabited planets that were all had ancestry with each other. The third one
Mm.
was called Zeta Reticuli. As time
Mhm.
progressed, cycles of time also occurred on this in the solar system. A devolution of consciousness occurred in which two planets warred against the third planet, completely destroyed it, making the inhabitants of that planet having to go underground. And these became the first gray aliens. That they were from planet called Zeta Reticuli. They went under Earth and they had no more connection to the sun and started having to create biological bodies to incarnate into, to transfer their
Mm.
consciousness into, because the human bodies weren't able to work anymore because they had to go underground because their planet surface was uninhabitable, right?
Mm. Mhm.
So fast forward multiple millennia, these constellations started fractalizing and spreading all over the galaxy, interacting with
Mhm.
all types of ETs, creating the first karmic imprint between the reptilian races and the humans, literally resulting in Earth's karmic experience right now, and we're still working out those kinks of those interactions.
Mm.
And they went to Arcturus, to Sirius, to the Pleiades. Ultimately, the Syrians came down to Earth. They were descendants of the Lyrans, with the Lyrans, and they wanted to basically create a perfect embodiment of a humanoid on Earth so that they could incarnate into and gain the experiences that they needed to transcend the karma that they had created. Right. So they
Hmm.
created, they got used their own consciousness and the native on the planet. They combined them together, created a genetic hybrid, and then consciously incarnated into that life to live a life of
Mhm.
linearity, because they did not come from a world of linearity. And
Mhm.
that started the story of human incarnations on Earth. So you can see how those stories are very similar, right?
Uh-huh.
So to me, it's the question is still out there: which one's the original story, or if they're the same story?
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, we see this when we see the same hieroglyphs or writings, stone writings on the walls in various countries all over the planet.
Hmm.
It's like, where did it start and did it spread, or was it just simultaneously?
Yeah,
And I believe it's just simultaneously. Yes,
yeah.
that we uh, that information comes through the collective,
Hmm.
and that we're able to express that in our own way, in our own fashion, from our own, you know,
Yes,
perspective, phenomenological world perspective. So I mean, yeah,
I agree.
it's
Yeah.
fascinating.
It looks like, so that's what one of my theories is, that right now the reason why there's so many people on Earth and many people feel like they were the same individual in past lives, and
Uh-huh.
is that there are many timelines converging right now into this experience,
Yes.
and not all the people incarnating come from the same linear timeline as the other person, because
Hmm.
our consciousness can transcend time, right? So a lot of us on Earth have actually different linear historical stories. So we're all coming here and we're sharing our stories, but they all did occur, and they probably had occurred simultaneously, but throughout parallel dimensions and realities where the story was a little different.
Mm.
So, and I feel that the Earth as it ascends, there are multiple third dimensional planets that are all coming together, and we're incarnating here, and we're going to be ascending and creating more of an oversoul planet rather than such a fractalized version that we've been in.
Mm. 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 Can I ask you a question? Do you feel that we lived on another planet before and we had to evacuate because it was going to implode or explode, or
Yeah.
we destroyed a previous planet and came here?
I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that we were either e- either on Mars or Maldek, right, which is the asteroid belt that is
Mhm.
between Mars and Jupiter, or even on both planets. And maybe not everybody on Earth. Because it seems like there was definitely a civilization on Earth when there was a when there was destruction on Mars, and these beings from Mars actually came down to Earth. There's a story that says that Lemuria was actually around at that time when the Martians came to Earth, and a group of humans came from Mars, and they created a civilization on Earth, and over time they merged with the Lemurians. The Lemurians were very feminine energy. The Martians were very warlike. Mars, the god of war, was very warlike civilization, and that was the original creation of why patriarchy took over the planet, because the Martians, basically with their linear mind and warlike mentality, overtook the Lemurians, and then kind of like made the divine feminine become a wounded feminine. So I think that definitely could be the situation. I've actually had dreams that, and I'm not one to like say like my experiences, or I'm too much of a skeptic to have a dream and be like, this is what's happened, but this
Uh-huh.
this is something that was so profound. It was the dream of myself on Maldek in a war, right?
Mm.
And I was actually because I believe that a lot of us have actually other versions of ourselves currently existing on the planet, that our soul is experiencing multiple people. And
Hmm.
so I actually, in this dream, I was on one side of the war, and then halfway into the war I became the other person fighting me, and I saw how I
Oh.
was actually on both sides, and how it was all this game that I was playing, right? So I
Mm.
think Maldek was definitely probably destroyed from, who knows if it was the people on the planet or some external force. But then Mars, I've done so much research on Mars anomalies. I've done entire conferences on Mars anomalies. There's just so much evidence to suggest that there was ancient civilization there, and all these parallels to structures on Earth.
Yes.
Plus, around 5 years ago, NASA said they found water in the North Pole. A lot of people didn't realize that. Around 6 years ago, they found bacteria life that looks like it could have been an advanced life that devolved, right? And that was just like on a ticker on CNN, right?
Hmm.
And then and not only that, like there are remote viewing sessions of the CIA on
Mhm.
Mars in which they're talking about the beings that are there. So there's a lot of evidence to
Mhm.
point to something had occurred on Mars. Even now, they're actually showing models. Like it's already a given that Mars used to be a planet that had water, ocean,
Mhm.
seas,
Mhm.
greenery, trees, and all of that.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's not about whether or not it was habitable. We know it was habitable, but the fact is that they're saying they have
Mhm.
not found the evidence for life yet. You know,
Mm.
so I,
Mhm.
I think that it points to the fact that either we came from that planet, some other beings came from that planet, but
Mm.
there was definitely something happening over there.
Mm. Mm. And what it would take to actually make your planet uninhabitable.
Hmm.
Like if we keep going in the direction that we're going in
Hmm.
this, whew, right?
Yeah.
And so this is the work that we're here to do. How can we
Hmm.
shift our energies individually and collectively to come into a healing space for Mother Gaia so that she
Hmm.
can really rejuvenate and she can truly provide for all of us? There's enough abundance for every single person on the planet.
Yeah.
And if we keep going in the way that we're going, that is going to be untrue. And
Yeah.
so, how can we shift? How can we let that old paradigm fall and to create and birth our new earth?
Yeah. And I agree.
Mm,
We have been indoctrinated, whether it's ourselves, our karmic agreements, or external forces that are truly just reflections of us enforcing those beliefs, would
mm,
be that we are in a lack mentality, that we don't have enough resources, that there
uh-huh,
needs to be less people on the earth. I've spoke
uh-huh.
to a lot of people that think we're overpopulated, from governments that have said it, from
Yep.
political figures, and from people like Mr. Gates that has said that
Mm-hmm.
we're overpopulated, to random friends that think that, oh, there's too many people on Earth. Well, there are actually more resources in a lot of places on Earth that aren't even don't really even have a population there.
Yeah.
I believe there's more than enough on Earth. Plus, now that
Mm-hmm.
we're realizing everything is energy, we're getting to a phase where we can not only understand that we already have abundance around us, but we're able to
Mm-hmm.
create more abundance by pulling from space time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who knows where that's going to lead to in the near future. So the fact is, the universe is full of abundant energy. we're the most amazing batteries ever. Our bodies are creating energy all the time,
Uh-huh.
and we don't even have the technology yet to harness, on a collective scale, the energy
Uh-huh.
that we're creating. So
Mm.
it is time for us to move from the lack mentality to one of
Yes.
abundance. Now, to answer
Yes.
your question of how can we do that, I
Mhm.
feel that it's inevitable. Obviously, you can focus on things like this, get involved in spirituality, you know, and just focus on improving your life, eating well, things like that really can help
Mhm.
shift your consciousness so that you have these beliefs. I
Mm.
personally did workshops in which I worked on my relationship with money and abundance in general to really
Mhm.
figure out what
Mhm.
my triggers are with why I have this lack mentality. Most of them came from my childhood, that so that I can realize more the universe is an abundant place. And as I did that, all of a sudden new opportunities came. All of a sudden my financial situation shifted, right?
Yep.
So now the inevitable component is that it seems that we go through cycles. Not time is not linear going in a straight
Mhm.
line. And the reason why we pick Egypt, ancient Greece, as the beginning point of civilization and the beginning point of democracy is because we can track humanity linearly from that
Mm.
point. However, if
Uh-huh.
you go before that, you see that it kind of goes like in a wave or even in circular form.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then you go into the yuga cycles of India and look at the dating of what's happening and actually track it all. And we are on an upturn right now.
Mhm.
We've been in an age called the Kali Yuga, which is the
Yes.
basically the dark ages that
Dark ages.
literally represents lack. It
Mhm.
represents lack. It represents disconnection. It represents the age of authority, where we give up power to authority. That
Mm.
was said thousands of years ago about the age that we're in. So now, 200 years ago, that age started shifting, and we've been in a 200-year phase of moving into Dwarpa Yuga, which is the Bronze Age, which is the next age, which is no called 2,000 years ago was called the Age of Energy Innovation.
Mm.
What's happened now? We all of a sudden discovered the lighting. We have all types of ways to harness the
Yep.
exact same electric energy in different ways, from my
Uh-huh.
salt lamp in front of me to my computer screen to the webcam. Right?
Uh-huh.
We are
Yep.
at the beginning phases of understanding energy and utilizing it in many, many ways. And what is
Mm.
energy? It's the things that make up all things. It's
Mm.
completely abundant everywhere. We can
Mhm.
even pull it. The sun is pulling energy from literally nowhere,
Mm.
completely fueling it, right? So we're at the beginning phases of understanding this. There's a few hundred
Yes.
years to, I think, I forget the exact, it's under 1,000 years, but of us being in this energy age. So
Mm.
we're just at the baby steps right now. We think that we're
Uh-huh.
realizing abundance right now. Imagine where we're going to be when we truly embrace and understand how energy works in the cosmos.
Uh-huh. Yes. And do you feel that, say, Lemuria or Atlantis really understood the abundance of energy,
hmm I think they did
how to
in Lemuria.
utilize it? Uh-huh.
How to utilize it, yeah. So
Mhm.
it's interesting too, because when people look at ancient past, they're looking for technology similar to ours to say that they were advanced. The reason why the
Mm.
Stone Age is called the Stone Age is because they're only finding stone structures, and they're not finding computers and things like that. So they're like, they were in the Stone Age, right? So
Mhm.
um, I think that they had an understanding that was beyond the material of energy,
Mhm.
that they were able to
Mhm.
use their own consciousness at different ages, because we've had multiple different forms of experiences within the same ages. 26,000 years ago from now, we're in the same upturn of this cycle, and they were utilizing it completely different. So I
Mm.
think a lot of people, beings, got to a level of consciousness that we didn't need the external realities to understand and tap into all knowing awareness, to tap into the akashic records, to be able to Google the definition of something. You know what I mean? Like we were at a level of consciousness where we didn't need that. So I think they
Mhm.
had an understanding, and the way I like to explain it was they had an acoustic understanding or an organic understanding of energy, where they were
Mhm.
utilizing like actual earth to harness the energy rather than the external devices like a smartphone or something like that. Not to
Mhm.
say that they may have had technology like this, but just if you look at the ancient scriptures and the hieroglyphs and the things that they're doing, you can see that there is a more of an advanced kind of mystical component to it rather than the linear component that we currently, are
Mhm.
expressing through our technological advancements.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
And
And
indeed,
kind of
they
let
are
me just add
talking.
this
Yeah.
to that
Mhm.
actually. So when it comes to Atlantis, many researchers have said that Atlantis was experimenting with energy on a level that was way beyond the consciousness
Uh-huh.
that they should have been, whether it was hybridizing beings together or creating some sort of external Merkaba, is what they called it. An external Merkaba
Mm.
is creating something external for you to do the do what you can really do internally within yourself. So they
Mhm.
were creating that externally, and due to that, there was an earthquake and there was all types of different issues that occurred in Atlantis. And then over a series of 7 destructions and 7 cataclysms, they eventually sank underwater. So I do think that what we're doing right now is we're kind of bringing peace to multiple karmas in the universe, but definitely the Atlantean one, where we're in the same situation. We have this advanced
Mm.
technology, but our consciousness is not quite at the level of the technology that we're creating, which is why a lot of governments in the world are not utilizing their technology consciously, right? What would happen if we all did the inner work so we weren't so triggered all the time that we can start actually utilizing our technology consciously? So I think that's the fork in the
Mm.
road that we're at. Is are we going
Mhm.
to have some sort of awakening on the planet that is going to get us to the level where we can utilize what we've created in a way that will create harmony, not destruction?
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and speaking of energy, right? Let's go into Tesla and free energy and where we would be if we actually utilize that instead of cables and wires and oil,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, we did a whole 4-hour presentation called The Lost Century, right?
Mm.
And it was literally about where we could have been a
Yeah.
100 years ago if it wasn't for what had happened with Edison and
Uh-huh.
Tesla and more. So I feel everything happens at the level that's supposed to happen. And there are definitely going to be individuals that come on the planet with awakened consciousness way beyond their times. It would have been incredibly awesome if Tesla's energy and his awareness really took a hold in that moment, because life could have been different at that point.
Yeah.
But I also feel that it happened the way it was supposed to be. And
Mhm.
Tesla's awareness and technology is now actually having an effect on people, and people like Nassim Haramein, Foster Gamble, right?
Mhm.
Michael
Mhm.
Tellinger, they're all utilizing and connecting with people that are utilizing Tesla's awareness in order to create free energy devices, or attempting to create them at least at this
Yeah.
moment, so
Mhm.
that the whole entire planet can have the energy they need without having to be stuck in this system where they have to monetarily pay for it. Because it's interesting, if the universe is an abundant place, the only way they can make you pay for these resources is by making you think that they're limited, right?
Yeah.
Like a great example is, what the heck is bandwidth? You know, like why
Uh-huh.
is it that I can just call a company and all of a sudden they can just give me more bandwidth on my internet, and all of a sudden just with a click
Uh-huh.
of a button I'm able to get things faster than ever.
Faster.
You know, it's this
Uh-huh.
limit, as if there's a limit on bandwidth, but actually everybody could have a huge amount of bandwidth and it would not even affect anybody negatively.
Oh, wow. That is a very good point to make, right? And so many believe that of themselves too. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not worthy. I'm not an infinite being of light, and I can't do this or I can't do that, right? And what would happen if we change and shift that within ourselves and our consciousness too? And actually saying, I am infinite, I am abundant, I
Yeah.
am, we are one,
Hmm.
right?
That goes into our educational system and what we're
Uh-huh.
taught from beginning. Because just like my friend told me yesterday when he had a parent teacher conference with his teacher, is that you're basically teaching them how to be an employee, how to clock in, clock out, and
Mhm.
and basically be a good employee, not really giving them the awareness that they need to become empowered sovereign individuals. So if
Mhm.
we had like mantras like what you said from the beginning, you know,
Mhm.
and instead of indoctrinating ourselves that we're not worthy of this and that we need to work
Mhm.
for others and be a part of what I said before, the Kali Yuga, be a part of the
Mm.
authoritative age,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Then imagine what we could be at that, when we're adults. The first few years of our life are the most important for really creating belief systems that we will take into the rest of our lives. Some of us, a lot of us, work for decades to try to unlearn
Mm.
the traumas that we got as a child because we were
Mm.
taught we're never enough.
Mhm.
So a re-education of society is what needs to happen. Our
Mhm.
institutions need to change. And it's not even has to be new agey or airy fairy to these governments,
Mhm.
because psychology backs everything that we're saying.
Yeah.
Say these things to your children. Make sure when you speak to them, and when you say these tones, the statistics show that kids have these type of mental issues later in life, when you speak to them around this, maybe you should word it like this, because the studies show
Mhm.
that this
Mhm.
actually helps people have a more empowered, fulfilling life later, you know?
Mhm.
So it's this it's out there, but the reason why it's not been implemented yet is because it doesn't serve the system and the
The
hierarchical system
system.
that we've
Yeah.
created, right? The only
Mhm.
thing that serves that is by the majority of the planet thinking that they're not good enough, so that we can
Yep.
continue serving for the ones that really want to control everything, right? On on
Mhm.
a, on a level that transcends that, these ones that control everything are just reflections of ourselves that are really there to give us the contrast, so that we understand what it is not to feel that we're enough, but still figure it out. Like, how beautiful is it that we're on a planet that, and that yourself and so many other people have literally had the cards stacked up against them, but still work through it. And not only
Ah.
had the cards stacked up against you because you're on this planet, but the cards stacked up against us because we forgot our divine connection.
Mhm.
And then we still went through this reality and remembered it, right? That, I feel, is part of the lesson of Earth. And that's why many civilizations say that you come back and come back and come back until
Mhm.
you get to that state where you
Mhm.
realize that, you were connected to it all in the first place.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, the samsara of it, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, that death and rebirth. It was so many hieroglyphs around that, right? The Ankh, and then having
Yeah.
the portal going back through, and the underworld, and being reborn.
Yes.
And it happens in one lifetime too. We have our dark night of the soul, and then we're able to be rebirthed into our new incarnation of what it is that we want to be in the world.
Hmm. I just love that. And this, even the story of Jesus is the
Hmm.
story of resurrection and the
Exactly.
reincarnation,
Yes.
and it's kind of overlooked that he was
Mm,
resurrected and
mm,
reborn. And that even
mm.
goes into many movies. And I don't know if you've seen this or heard of this before, but start looking at movies from this lens. See how many movies have a drowning and rebirth scene in it. The majority of
Mm,
movies do, and not always drowning, but being submerged in water and being
mm,
reborn. It's an
mhm.
occultist ancient practice where actually the occultists used to, before you would joined their secret society, would basically drown you. You would die, go to the point where you just suffocate and die, and then they would leave you. And then if you could resurrect, because you just like passed out, but if you'd resurrect, spit water out, then you've been reborn, and technically you come back with powers. So
Interesting.
that's the whole. In James Cameron, there are some really famous directors that every movie they have has it in there,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
So for
mhm,
example, James Cameron, every movie has that. All the
mhm,
superhero movies, right?
mhm.
Marvel and DC, all of them have some sort of being submerged underwater, and then when they get reborn, all of a sudden Superman comes out, and
They're
so
even stronger.
it's embedded in our society everywhere, and it's
Interesting.
embedded in our art all over the place. But this
Yeah.
whole concept of being reborn, being recycled, is is predominant,
Mhm,
including even the story with Shiva and him being the recycler of energy, is all about the fact that Shiva is not the Kali Ma destructor. Shiva is the
mm,
recycler. Nothing gets destroyed, everything gets recycled and has another opportunity for full liberation.
mhm, mhm.
Mhm.
Full liberation. Yes.
Yeah.
And so let's go back to that. If one of the intentions were that we were a slave race, if
Hmm.
that was one of the intentions, of course it would be embedded in our consciousness. And therefore it would explain a little bit further our system and why we're programmed in the way that we are,
Yeah.
to be in service to someone outside of ourselves, right?
Yep, yep. Yeah,
And
embedded in
so
our DNA, basically.
yeah, exactly. And so how can we shift that? How, like, what would you say is part and parcel to
Hmm.
get into our 5D reality instead of this 3D?
Right. Well, there's the whole idea that we are 12-stranded DNA beings, but we only use two
Mhm.
of our DNA strands. But
Mhm.
what happens is, because our DNA, if you look into any research, mainstream research on DNA, they almost say like our DNA is a perfect symphony of music. And they've actually
Mm.
translated DNA strands to musical notes now, and it sounds incredible. So through the harmony and the beauty of where our position of our solar system is in our galaxy, going through the
Mhm.
photon belt, the collective energy of humans on the planet, we are now putting a vibration. Just imagine a DNA spiral right here, the vibration going right through it, and all of a sudden these other strands that were junk DNA, right? And I really to saying junk DNA is just
It's
oversimplifying
just
it,
ridiculous.
because yeah, one is still, it's ridiculous that they're saying it, but two,
Yeah.
they've actually discovered a lot of the junk DNA are actually working. This is a discovery from 2 years ago, that
Uh-huh.
they're actually translating the proteins of the other two strands. However, there are some of those other strands that completely seem not to do anything. So
Mhm.
we were created and we were given the opportunity for full liberation from the beginning. That was the clause in the creation of any species. In a free
Mhm.
will planet, you can't just give them control forever. You need to give them a way out. And we have that code embedded within us. And I feel in every cell in our body, but definitely within our DNA. So as the harmonies and the frequencies shift, as the cycles of time shift, as we move into the photon belt in our galaxy, all of these other strands are being activated within us.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
helps us shift from this slave conquered
Mhm.
mentality
Mhm.
to realizing a true divinity. And I feel this is not that's what I've heard from researchers and my own research, but now my own personal opinion is that each of those strands of the 12 strands actually represent a dimension. And where when we activate all 12
Mm.
strands, we're able to pull information from all 12 dimensions. And the reason why only two strands are awake right now is because we actually only exist two-dimensionally in a three-dimensional world. So we're not
Uh-huh.
even fully embracing the third dimension, and the fourth being time. So we're a victim to the third dimension. We're a victim to the fourth dimension until we activate the strands that make us be the creators of those realities, rather than being a victim to linear
Uh-huh.
time, aging, birth, death, mourning, grieving, seeing things in those kind of ways.
Mm, mm. And this is happening neurologically as well, right? We only use
Mhm.
about 20% of our brain. And the
Exactly.
more that we open up those portals and those neuro connections,
Yep.
and those that wire together, what is the saying again? Those that wire together fire together, right? And
Mhm.
as we open more neural pathways in our
Yeah.
brain and cutting old patterns, but opening,
Yes.
then we are able to have more of our abilities. And
Yep.
so, for instance, we have five senses, all our five senses, and some have a sixth sense, right? But I've learned that we have 180 different senses. And so some people experience them. Some are psychic, some ESP, clairvoyance, clairaudience, all of these things. Everyone is capable of that. The more that we open our mind and our consciousness, the
Yeah.
more those abilities start to develop and we can cultivate them.
Right, right. And then different types of gifts, which are just innate abilities, start presenting
Mhm.
themselves. And
Mhm.
one is telepathy, right?
Mhm.
Like when we have our neurological synaptic connectors fire on different levels and we start utilizing more of our brains, we're able to tap into having telepathic communication and even instant manifestation of things in front of us.
Mm.
So I feel that's what we have in
Mm.
store. Whether we're going to get there within a few hundred years or 1,000 years, I'm not too sure. But I do know that we're in the upturn of
Mhm.
this, and it's really, I love this quote that many people have said, but it's this quote is specifically from the Rig Veda. It's it's not the it's not the destination, it's the journey that counts.
Yes.
Right? And
My
that goes to the whole idea of this world being about experience, not about good, bad,
mm.
evil, all that stuff. That's just this third dimensional experience we're having. There's
Mm.
duality in higher dimensions at points, but they're not experienced in such an evil kind of good, bad kind of way.
Mm. Mhm.
So that's what I feel is happening is we're ascending to a level where we're bringing harmony and bringing integration, going to an
Mhm.
integration point on the planet so that we can exist in balanced state rather than on these two polar opposites that we've been in for so long.
Yeah. 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 Going
Mm.
back to that Holy Trinity again and balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friend Miracula has a rendition of that saying, "The blessed nation, the joy journey is the blessed nation. The
Nice.
joy journey is the blessed nation."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's why and that goes into the whole entire bottom line of it all is being present and living in the moment. So
Mhm.
that saying, both of those things right there are literally saying that it's the journey. Enjoy the
Mhm.
journey
Mhm.
rather than just looking forward to the
Yep.
destination. Because if you only look forward to the destination, you're always feeling lack. You're thinking that nothing is
Mhm.
complete right now. And the
Mhm.
universe
Mhm.
works on a paradox. The more you think that you're not there, or the more you want to be somewhere else, the harder it
Mm.
is to be there because you're not being present with the energy of this moment. So
Mm.
the only way we can create an ascended reality, which is a
Mm.
future version of this planet, is
Mhm.
by enjoying the present
By
moment that you're
enjoying
in
it
right now.
now.
So a
Exactly.
lot of people, I've noticed, and even myself at a certain point, was so focused on getting somewhere that
Uh-huh.
I didn't really have joy or contentment in what I was doing in life.
I think that happened for a lot of people, and the lockdown really helped cultivate being present with where you were. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, we had plans to go to Bali and build a home over there. We have land that we can build a house on,
Yeah.
and we can't get there right now. And so I've had to be really present and like really grounding my roots in where we have land here and
Mm-hmm.
just being happy here and creating my life here. And if we get to Bali in the future, awesome. But
Yeah.
there's no like disappointment or lack because I'm not going right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, this is a
Yeah.
big
And that's
lesson for all
beautiful.
of us.
And how do you feel that you cultivated being able to do that? You know?
I think that what it really came down to was not looking outside myself to be happy. You know, it's like all the I was a fire dancer, I was on the stage at festivals, I was around community, I was a part of productions, and I really enjoyed being around a lot of people. I'm an extrovert. And I've had to go into this quiet space, this like kind of introverted inspection moment. And I looked within for my own worthiness, my own love, my own validation. It's not out there. It's not outside of myself. And so same thing with my land. It's like it's not out there. We have community here. I want to build a community, sustainable community project. We have community here. They don't technically live on the land, but they're here all the time and helping and they're around us and with us. And so, yeah, that's a great question. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And I asked it because, I've struggled with being able to be present, and I know a lot of
Mm,
people are, so it's just like sharing the tools of how we really find the peace where we're at is important, I feel.
mhm. So a big piece of that for me is writing. I
Hmm.
write a lot. I like to write a lot, and I love dancing. I love moving my body and having intelligent conversations with
Hmm. Hmm.
people. It's like this is my life now. I just love talking with people, connecting
Hmm.
online, and being able to share intelligent, inspiring conversations with
Hmm.
others.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So, yeah. And I know that's a lot of the work that you do too. Tell us
Hmm.
a little bit more about Portal to Ascension. You just recently had a summit, didn't you?
Yes. So that was
Uh-huh.
our fifth annual Portal to Ascension Summit.
Okay.
The first two were in Irvine, California, and then we went online for, we did two the first year of the lockdown, and then one this year. And Portal
Mm.
to Ascension. So to pick up the story that I said in the beginning, in 2006, I created an online Facebook group called 2012 Consciousness, Mind Evolution, and Presence. And the reason I did it is because I'd been into this awareness for 6 years, and I really wanted to figure out more information about this and connect with many people. So thousands of people started joining the group. I then created multiple chapters of the group. I created Canada chapter. I created New York, UK, Portland, Seattle, Mexico, California. Actually, not Mexico. Scratch that one. And then as I was
Mhm.
when I created the groups, all these people from these areas started joining, and
Mhm.
over a period of a couple of years, from 2006 to 2008, I had a series of I had one dream at the end in 2008, which basically told me to change the name of the group to Portal to Ascension. The name of the group had morphed over those 2 years to like Cosmic Consciousness, Mind Evolution, and Presence. And then I realized,
Mhm.
oh, let me take out the word mind. It's not about the mind, it's beyond the mind.
Yeah.
So I went
Yeah.
Cosmic Consciousness, Evolution, and Presence. And then it just became Cosmic Consciousness. And then I had the dream and said change it to Portal to Ascension. So I
Uh-huh.
changed the group to Portal to Ascension, and it was the same year that I went from conspiracy Neil to spiritual Neil. So I was into all this stuff, UFOs, ETs more than anything, and then frequency and vibration and
Uh-huh.
spirituality. But I felt lost. I felt disconnected. I thought that they were out to get us, right? And I was angry at what they had done
Mm.
to us. And
Mm.
then I realized in that same year, I had a realization that they were actually me, and I had been them
Mm.
in the past as well,
Mhm.
and that
Mhm.
they came down here to give me they a lot of them aren't even negative energies. A lot of them came straight from the divine as role players in order to play this role of experience so that I can have the contrast
Mm.
I need to remember who I am in this time that we're at. So I went from in 2008, from disliking and being angry at them to embracing and accepting where I'm at and what has happened, and being able to love the ones that are doing things negatively to me. That doesn't mean
Mhm.
that I completely let go of even working towards bringing light to the crimes against humanity, if you will. I didn't stop doing that. I just had a whole other perspective on it. And when I had that perspective shift, that's when I changed the name to Portal to Ascension,
Mm.
and our production company was born. I started doing in 2008 or 2009. My first event was hypno creativity. My friend was doing hypnosis, and
Nice.
we playing sound frequencies, and people
Yeah.
were releasing their creative blocks to draw right at
Beautiful.
a Ginger's Garden in Costa Mesa. And then after that, I met Dr. Dream, and he was like, let's go on tour and take this sound and vibration up and down the coast. So I quit my job as a web designer, and I moved in
Nice.
with him, and my other friend moved in as well. And then when we left, we only had 2 dates booked, but in the period of 6 weeks, we did over 16 different individual
Mm.
events that were 3 hours long, all the way from San Diego to Victoria Island, and then back down again.
Wow.
And
Mhm.
that was kind of the beginning of Portal to Ascension Productions, right? Over the next couple of years, I teamed up with some other individuals to promote and share extraterrestrial awareness and information about planets, and we continued touring until 2010. So
Mhm.
fast forward a couple of years, 2012, I decided that I wanted to. I'd created such a huge network, and there's so many speakers I had connected with now, that I wanted to do our first 3-day conference. So
Mhm.
in November of 2012, a year before December 21st, 2012, we
Yeah.
created Cosmic Reunion. Right, was the name of the 3-day
Cool.
conference in Irvine. Then the
Yeah.
next year, we did Cosmic Reunion Fourth Density. Bashar was the headline of the first one. We had some other
Nice.
headliners on the other one. And that was basically the milestone in Portal to Ascension, from us just being this company I created, this organization I created, doing small events, sound healing, to doing things on a mass level and having speakers fly out from all over the world.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Ever since then, we continued growing. I've now at this point, we're a full-on event production company, in which not only do we create 110 events a year, multi-day summits, conferences, workshops, from everything from individual ancient civilizations to sacred sexuality to quantum timeline jumping conference,
Oh,
uh,
oh, wow.
many different 2-day conferences. We have the Starseed Summit coming up in 2 days. We have a conference with Laura Eisenhower coming up in 2 weeks from now. That's a 3-day
Uh-huh.
conference. So we became this content creator, but also we are event production company for live events. So around 20% of our events
Uh-huh.
are live. There are speakers such as James Redfield from the Celestine Prophecy, the author of
Uh-huh.
that we produce everything for. We do his tours, his events. Whenever he goes and does an event, it'll be through us. And then there's some speakers, like we did Stephen Greer's events for 8 years. There'll be some speakers that just choose us to do certain things. Like one speaker might say, "Hey Neil, I'm doing this tour, everything's booked, but I don't have my Ubers set up from venue to
Yeah.
venue." And then
Right.
that's what we'll do. There will be another speaker saying, "Hey, I got everything set up, but I don't have hotels and marketing down." So then we handle
Uh-huh.
that, right?
Uh-huh.
So we become a full-on event production for consciousness presenters. But the main thing is our online portal, where we have these 100 plus events and have over 10,000 hours of presentations that are kind of like, it looks like Netflix.
Wow.
Basically, you can sort out by category, speaker. Every topic I've had the opportunity to think about in the last 16 years, we've either created an event on, or we have it in the pipeline over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And now I like to call Portal's Ascension a one-stop shop for consciousness. Not
Mm.
only are we there as a platform for light workers that are going to be the teachers of this new paradigm, as people start waking up and need individuals out there to give them this information. We are basically that resource for them to learn more, but we're also a resource for people just waking up, that if you want to go to one place and get every single aspect curated in such a beautiful way that it's not confusing, and you can actually add things to your watch list, check things out by categories, then you can come to Portal to Ascension. And so
That's
not only
great.
learn the next level of what you want to do, like take a 5 hour of physics of ascension course with Dan Winter and realize the mathematics with of ascension, so you can teach people who need
Mm,
that linear awareness to realize we're ascending, right? Or if
mhm.
you're like, I'm waking up right now, what's going on, what are cycles of time, you can come and find that on our platform as well.
Yeah,
So I've
yeah.
had the opportunity to work with over 1,500 presenters at this point, and we have a lot of plans for the near future, and it's continuing to grow. So I feel very blessed to be able to do what I'm doing.
That's incredible. Yeah, and I looked at some of your guests and your whole list on that last summit. It was like Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, Elizabeth
Hmm.
April, Laura Eisenhower. I was just like, wow, this is incredible. So much of the Gaia.com family. And yeah, thank you, Neil, for the work
Hmm.
that you do in the world. Really
Thank you.
appreciate you, brother. Yeah.
Thank you so
Is
much.
there any other way to get a hold of you, Instagram or anything like that?
Yes. So my Instagram, instagram.com slash
Mm.
portal to ascension. You can see it right down there right now.
Mm-hmm.
We had an Instagram that hit 15,000 and then Instagram deleted it. So I started
What?
all over again. Yeah, they deleted 20,000 people worldwide at the same exact moment in October of 2020. And I was one of them. And so they
I'm
took me
so
down. So
sorry to
I
hear
just
that.
started again.
Stop.
So please, everybody, if you want to follow us and see what we're doing, it's not only awesome things about our events, but we got some cool stories are really awesome. I'm going to the Yucatan next week, so you're going to be seeing me at ancient pyramids.
Mm,
I'll be broadcasting live from different ancient sites as well, so you can check that out right there. And then also I
mhm.
do spoken word. Maybe I can actually close out with that when we're wrapping up
Yes,
here,
please.
but
Yeah.
you can check out my spoken word on my YouTube, spoken word
Mhm.
YouTube, youtube.com/MC Resonance. And on that channel is actually me at different ancient sites around the world performing spoken word.
Mm.
And then lastly is our YouTube for Portal to Ascension that has been growing. We just got 2,000 new subscribers just in the last 28 days, and we just hit 45,000 on there. And
Great.
every single day, for actually every single day for the last 6 months, we've released a 3 hour presentation or interview or a panel discussion or something like
Mm.
that. So if you want to just get kind of an idea of all the information that we present and all the people we work with, really go there. It's going, you know, it's doing very well at this point, and it's a great place to really get a full circle awareness of the ascension process and what's happening on the planet. But something
Mm.
that we love going into, definitely on Port Ascension YouTube, is a lot of extraterrestrial awareness information. I like to split the UFO thing into two components. There's the UFO
Mhm.
disclosure, which is the nuts and bolts government kind of disclosure things, and then there's extraterrestrial awareness, which is the spiritual aspect of these beings. How did they connect to vibration and frequency?
Mm.
What is our ancestry to these beings? What did they have? What messages they have for us? So these are some of the topics that we explore on our YouTube. And then just the last thing I'll say is portaltoascension.org. If you just want to be connected with everything we do and get newsletters from us about upcoming gatherings and events, go to portaltoascension.org. When you sign up, you get a username and password for to access our website with over 3,000 hours of free presentations. So we have
Wow.
10,000 hours altogether, but signing up on our website gives you free access to this consciousness archive. And not only is it 3 hours of presentations, but every single month we're adding more and more content. So there's always something
Amazing.
to check out there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for
Thank
all
you.
that you do. Thank you for sharing 1111 Unified with your community. Thank you for all that. Like, I just, mwah, I love you. Mwah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, you wanted to share a little bit of your spoken word. I would love
Yeah, let's
that.
do
Okay, great.
it. All right. So this one right here is called The Journey. And since a lot of what we spoke about in the last hour or so was really a lot to do with the cycles that we go through in the
Mhm.
journey of life and reincarnation and resurrection. So this kind of represents that. And this was actually the first spoken word piece I ever did live in 2008.
Wonderful.
The road goes on for generations. The travelers would disperse their light amongst all the willingly incarnated souls. But what if the ones that didn't know? Amnesia of the internal endowment to reserve a place in the fifth dimension for themselves. The ego to control in a better life they shall never know. I welcome you, Dark One, into the lap of luxury followed by pain and woes. We all sold our souls to the devil, but the devil exists not. Negative energy we dub as evil creates the demons of whom we are fearful. Take the D from the demon, put it in front of the word evil. Now you have a personified devil. Our thoughts and experiences create this creature only exists in the mind. Our desires and wants creates this full feature ego that keeps our lower souls from reaching the divine. Intellect, love, on a perfect understanding we will have with one another. I welcome you, my brother, my sister, my lover, to become one, to help me become one before reality turns me from duality and back into ether's imagination. You
Mm.
see, I'm the ghost of lives past. Generations have descended to gain these experiences. And I pray the human situation is critical, mind analytical, won't let me forget the fall of angels and demons into the third dimensional world. Is this planet yours? May I hide amongst the lost souls? Hide out for a bit, drink some liquor, smoke some weed, and step outside for a cigarette? Yeah, sure, man. Here's a social security card. You may live. Reincarnated to a kid to live and give back to the society, and I'm locked in board as I smolder, but through the ashes comes a horde of abstract thought, who is not a ghost, a spirit, but just is an enlightened individual. Equality minus the elitist political goal, the cynical flow, the pain and woes, and shamanistic pagan rituals. We will resurrect the Messiah in all of us. It's time to trust our brothers and sisters. Unity of mind, consciousness, awareness on the rise. The yin yang intertwined, masculine, feminine lovers intertwined. Spit worse than the chakra points in my spine. Relentless, but still find inner peace helps on the place of my corrupted mind. Chemtrails, aspartame, fluoride kept my awareness fried. Getting drunk and high blocked the constant question of why am I really here? But now I know is to help humanity steer into the right direction. For every single one of you, I feel affection. We're in the same situation. So erase the awkward moments, trying to walk around and get that bonus. You remember the Arcturians will be one of the group of interdimensional beings in the near future. The mass landings will help us to really breathe.
Mhm.
So raise your frequency if this is what you want to see. And don't try to break free from the shackles of captivity that we formed in our own mentality, because you and I, we've always been free.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Just this energy
I
flowing over me right now. Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate you.
appreciate you too. Thank you for having me
Mm.
here. And
Mm.
we're just keep coming together. It's unity consciousness is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Creating collaboration over competition and realizing the collaboration over competition mentality makes us realize and accept the abundance of the universe. And the more
Mm-hmm.
we embrace that and follow through with that, the more
Mm-hmm.
we're going to get what we really feel that the earth should be at. And part of this is us coming together and collaborating to create these kind of moments.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. Well said. We'll leave it with that. Thank you, family, for being here. Happy
Thank you,
11
everyone.
11.
Bye.